I started dating this girl recently. She checks all the boxes. We agree on everything to do with religion and politics. We have similar interests, and most importantly, she loves God deeply. I consider myself lucky, but we had a conversation last night where the subject of kids came up. She said she isn't interested in the process of pregnancy and childbirth and would much rather adopt. I'm all for adoption, but for as long as I can remember, I've always wanted biological kids. This revelation really hasn't set well with me, sometimes even disrupting my sleep. I very rarely met someone that checks all the boxes like she has. People have some come close, but not like this. Not like this. Is the kids, are people know what that's from? Is the kids thing, comment below if you know what not like this is from. Is the kids thing a big enough deal that I should call this off? She said that my desire for kids could be God calling her to something. Like she's hearing God wrong, and maybe he's confirmation that I do need kids.
Oh, okay.
That's the only thing that's given me hope in this entire message. Yeah. But she didn't sound incredibly convinced when she said that. Maybe God's giving me a sign.
Maybe God's giving me a sign.
She like smokes. I'm...
Oh yes, God's giving you another sign.
I don't know why that made me laugh so much. Oh, I'm worried about this God being a problem later in life if we get married. Any thoughts? Yeah, this is gonna cause problems. And like, you know, if you suspect God is calling you to something, I feel like that's not really something that you take lightly. You know what I'm saying? Like, she's like, you know, maybe God is telling me something about me having kids because of you, but she's like falling asleep while she's saying it.
Yeah.
It's just disrespectful. It's like, look, maybe God is not calling you to that girl, but if he is, why do you seem so disinterested? If you even thought that God was calling you to something, you would think that would be like this life-changing, like God actually said something to me.
Well,
that changed my life. The possibility.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't say that she was uninterested. It said that doesn't sound incredibly convinced. So it could be a thing where she's trying to stay open to it and say, like, look, I mean, maybe the fact this is so important to you means that God is showing me something.
Josh, I think you're right. I think that's true. Look, I get
you get a vibe.
Yes, when people, it's like they feel like they're better than everything, than the world. Somebody who actually says, I don't want children. That's a thing that they've actually decided. And I personally, Josh, think that for her, the adoption thing is a little bit of a cop-out. I don't actually think that. I think that that's how she convinces herself to not do anything. And she just has to tell herself, well, I'll maybe adopt.
Yeah.
I'm just throwing that out there. But, you know, I have good senses, Josh, when it comes to this stuff.
Normally do.
But yeah, I think that it's this idea, this mentality of not wanting kids, having that being a decision, is people believing that they are the most important thing on this planet, they themselves. They have this ego complex that they don't even realize that they're living with, but they are, and it's ruining their life.
Interesting.
Now, for people who can't have children, that's not, I'm talking about people who actively say, I don't want children. I cannot picture myself having children. It's one of two things. They've either had something bad happen to them as a child, and they can't imagine raising a child because they only envision bad things.
Yeah.
Which also is egocentrical if you think about it that way too, Josh. Which is that's controversial to say. Or they actually just straight up are like very egotistical people. But both way, it's them-centered, is what I'm saying. The egotism it's them-centered. They're either focusing too much on their problems and how they grew up and the problems, which you can expect that if somebody had bad things happening to them, but it's causing them, I don't like saying stuff is causing people to do stuff, but it's causing them to think about themselves too much, which is against what you're supposed to do as a Christian. You're not supposed to think of yourself. You're supposed to think of others.
Yeah.
Having children and being willing to do this is the ultimate thinking of somebody else.
Right.
You're putting all of your experiences that you had as a kid, if you were hurt in many different ways, you're saying, look, I'm trusting God. I'm putting all of this aside, and I'm not going to let that stop me from doing a natural thing that God has created my human body to do. Because we need more people on this planet. God loves the children, and now you're saying, no, I'm not gonna put another person on this planet that God loves. You know what I mean? It just seems, when you put it in terms like that it actually is what you're saying in some backwards way. So
I posted in the community. We'll talk about it in the question of the week section. But I posted a poll, and it said, who is planning to have kids and who isn't. And it didn't really dawn on me that could be kind of a tricky subject, because certain people have like certain physical issues where they can't have kids or some other things. But then you also, I think I heard from some people that didn't, that have said, I don't think I want to have kids, but they feel like they're being told they're bad for not wanting that. And I
wouldn't say that they're bad, but I think that, and I'm being straight up honest. If this makes people mad, that's just what it is. I don't think, I think that there's a lot of stuff deep in you that you haven't thought through, and you haven't figured it out yet. And this is for people who say that they just, not that they can't have kids, but they just don't want them. I think there's a lot there's a lot about yourself that I think that you don't see yet. Not saying that it's all good and it's not all bad, but there's something that you are missing. If that is the conclusion that you've come to. And I don't even, and there are studies on if you feel like your country, this is actually pretty interesting, if you feel like your country is more in like a slave state kind of thing, that the population tends to decrease because people don't feel excited to have kids.
If you don't feel pessimistic about the future.
Yes. If you feel pessimistic about the future of your country, people tend to have kids less.
Pessimistic.
If they feel pessimistic, they have kids less. Once people feel like the country is turning around, then people start having a lot of kids. I've found that stat very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. Yeah.
What do you think, though?
I mean, on some level, I think I agree with that. I think that it always just makes me a little bit like, because I know that there can be, everyone can have a different experience. And so I think that there could be specific situations where someone just says, I don't want to have kids. Maybe I don't even want to get married, or I for one reason or another. And I don't want everybody to feel like, because I don't want that. But I do also agree with you that a lot, maybe even most of the time, that I think there's some truth to what you're saying.
I notice trends. When you notice the trend is that a lot of people that we know,
sure, I mean,
are going in that direction.
People that we know, I agree. Yeah,
and then you think, okay, this is, it can't be every one of those people.
Yeah,
is that 0.1% of people that it makes sense.
Sure.
When you know a lot of them, it's like, okay, we're noticing something here.
And that's what, because a few people commented on the community site, and I said, I feel like I agree with you that it's not as clear cut as sometimes people try to make it seem like, everybody needs to have kids, and there's something wrong if you don't. But I also, at the end of the day, like if I have a friend who's on the fence, I will always encourage them to if they're nervous about it.
Right, exactly.
I'm somebody who, I never wanted to adopt or anything like that, but I think now, if I knew then what I know now that we have started being able to have kids, obviously, if I knew how good it was going to be, I would have not been hesitant about adopting back then. So, if she's actually serious going back to the message, if she's actually serious about adoption.
Josh, I go by my gut feelings.
I know you do.
And
I get it.
I go by trends, and I'm noticing, sure, maybe you're the person watching this. Maybe you are one of the people who's like 0.1%, but you just have to know that there is a statistic, there is a stat, and there is like 1% of people or 0.1%. And if you look around and you see, oh, I'm seeing a lot of the 0.1%, then I would start to think, okay, do I need to think about something a little differently here? Like maybe that is weird that I'm kind of surrounded by a lot of the 0.1% of people who like actually shouldn't have kids. Like it's a little.
And part of it too is that it's just it could also just be where you're at your current moment in life. Like people change. People's minds change about things. People, you find yourself in a different situation. Maybe you become more optimistic about where the world is going. And you just decide, or, I mean, if you're like me, it's kind of the opposite. It's like, I mean, if I think the world is going in a bad direction,
right,
well, then I want to have kids. I want to have more kids. Like, to me, I get why that stat makes sense. Like, I get why the majority of people that would be true on the whole. Yeah. But for me, personally, that doesn't ring true to me because I don't know. But
I know what you mean. Yeah.
Maybe we haven't known true. Right.
It's all make believe now. It's all make believe.
Yeah. One day
we're like, oh,
we're all around the campfire, and I'm like, we're not having kids. We could barely keep ourselves alive.
All right.
Yeah.
What do you think, Josh? Do you think I was too harsh with this? You think
I think it's interesting. I was very intrigued by posting the poll and seeing the different. This is a heavy topic for people to kind of navigate. So it's interesting, just even talking to you about it, and I don't know. I mean, nobody is a. I want everybody to have kids. I think that that really helps you to grow, and it's just the natural kind of life.
Right. I know that everything is kind of like touchy now because a lot of people are struggling having kids, for one reason or another, which, that's a very real thing. Yeah. We get married, we have kids young. Yeah. We then have like 10 kids. Like that's what it has been for thousands of years. Yeah. So we're just in a new era where we can think about this stuff, or we're thinking about this stuff because people are less healthy, or because there are toxins or whatever that we're exposed to unbeknownst to us. I
mean, for the vast majority of human existence, you had to have a bunch of kids because a lot of them weren't going to survive, and somebody had to keep the farm going once you couldn't do it. Now it's more of just like do we want to have kids because that would be fun, that would feel good.
Exactly. The fact that we even are having the conversation and asking the question is showing a degradation of society, like hugely.
Yeah. Right.
And that's I feel like everybody has to agree with that. I mean, that's just whatever.
Yeah.